Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to another installment of TEDXcellence, the show that features my continued search for information and assurance about our democratic system by listening to people that keep telling me that our democratic system is in danger. As I keep being told over and over and over and over again that if you happen to vote for the wrong person this year, democracy is dead. But apparently we can fix it. We'll talk about that momentarily. Before then, who's joining me? Oh wait, I forgot a whole thing, didn't I? I forgot a whole thing. You know what I forgot? And I come to you live from Crater Valley. Oh! Dog, Cat, Fox, and Pepperjack, and all of you. And who are you? Let's get to that now. Who are all you? All you weirdos. What are you doing here? Josh Hammond. Good evening. Mike R. Good evening. Noah Alexander. Alexander. See, my brain just wants to say Noah Asensio. And my brain then says Noah Exalinshir. Why have you done this to me, Noah? Oh, Noah. Advocates Diaboli. Good evening. Who else here? Tier Alexander. The Scourge. Good evening. Let's see. Who else has popped in? Shadowclaw. Good evening to you. Shell D. Hello. Kiro Soldier. Hello. And I say hi, Mike R. Well, hi, Mike R. If I had said it already, I forgot and get it twice. There you go. Attack. Good evening to you. Simon Wilkins. Good evening. Shady Grin. Good evening to you. Green Badger Outdoors. Good evening. Derek LaRue. Holy cats. Derek, thank you again, as always, very much. Appreciate your generosity and support, as always. Hope you're having a good evening. And I hope you enjoy the show. Who else is here? Kieverdam. Good evening. No fundraisers then. Well, I didn't see you post them in time for the show, so I had to put something up. I don't know if it got cut off by YouTube or something else, but I didn't have them handy, and I was like, so there's a link up at the top of the chat box for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, which is my chosen charity. So if I missed it, Kieverdam or YouTube cut it off, I swear it was not my fault. I was not ignoring you. It's just one of those things, but maybe next time. Appreciate it. Good evening, Kieverdam. Jamie Melquist, good evening. Pissed Off Shih Tzu, good evening to you. Attack Alpaca again. Thank you, Attack Alpaca, for the how's it going, Dog Cat Fox. Oh, Dog Cat Fox.
Wowee, wow, wow.
Oh, there's an irate Alex, Dog Cat Fox. Thank you so much. Attack Alpaca. Hope you're having a good evening. Hope you enjoy the show. Urcule DeStefano, good evening to you. Anyone else I see here? Lurking Gopher. Lurking otherwise. Oh, Kieverdam has provided the usual set of GoFundMes and things. Okay, tell you what. I'll post those. There we go. All right. Now everything feels correct. Casual, good evening. And Super Mutant 2099, good evening to you. And yes, everybody, take a look at the top of the chat box for the GoFundMes and fundraisers for our friends AJ, Roan Harushan, Natalie, and Angela Ariaga. Take a look at those when you have the opportunity. If you can donate, please do so. And even if you can't, if you can share those out on social media, that would be appreciated. Thank you, Kieverdam, for those, as always. All right, El Keldrig, good evening to you. All right, so tonight, what are we doing? Well, golly, even though every week TEDx and TED, in this case, drop several, less so TED than TEDx, presentations, pickings were fairly slim this week. A lot of postings were either TEDx youth stuff, which I stay away from, things in foreign languages, at least foreign to me, or just presentation after presentation trying to pitch me on how AI will fix this or AI will fix that, and I just kind of space out. And there was one TEDx presentation that a lot of people posted or tagged me on Twitter last week that had a girl talking on a stage, and I looked for this TEDx, but it has been privated. There is a playlist for that TEDx from the Nottingham, I think it's like Nottingham High or Girls School or something. And while some of the speakers in that presentation or that event were adults, most of them were juveniles, and those TEDx's have been hidden from public view. I can only guess why. But either way, finding out that the speaker was a juvenile, I wouldn't have done it Anyway, says I generally don't like dunking on kids who are probably just repeating things that adults told them. So either way, just for anybody who was wondering why that one hasn't been done yet or why I haven't decided to use that one, that's why. But tonight, can math help repair democracy? It's a bad day when I decide to do a TED, in this case, a TED Talk on math, because I hate math. I'm an English major. I try to stay away from math as much as possible. The one time professionally that I really had to learn some math was in another lifetime at this point when I was working in collections, and I had to learn to calculate prorations of debts on the fly. And in that case, necessity was the mother of retention. But after I stopped working at that job, it all went by the wayside. So I know I could do it again if I needed to, but I don't want to. So if I'm actually electing to watch a presentation about mathematics, it's because I want to learn, and especially in conjunction with learning about political systems. I'm not a political scientist either. So I'm the worst person to watch this, or maybe the best, because hopefully I'll learn something, right? But it's also another entry in a long line of presentations we've looked at over the last couple months about people telling us how to fix democracy or why democracy is broken. So there's that. Also, I have absolutely no idea what this is going to be about. I don't know how math could fix democracy or repair democracy, as the case may be. But I suppose we'll all find out together. Keeverdam, thank you so much. Maybe we could switch back and forth between the GoFundMes and leukemia lymphoma ones. Also, my vacation request for the 11th was approved. Yay! I don't have an applause stinger on here for like a celebration or something. Do I have something that's relatively joyful? Do I have a joyful stinger of some kind? Maybe. I mean, you getting a vacation is a relatively dramatic event, so there you go. Midnight's Edge After Dark. I'm confused. I thought math was racist. Well, there is math equity, Tom Connors, of Midnight's Edge After Dark. And thank you, Tom, for popping in. Yes, there is equitable math out there. I don't know if this is equitable math. We might find out it is. I've done several videos on math equity in the past, especially with the Bill and Melinda Gates, back when they were actually a married couple, foundation funding such efforts. But I suppose we'll find out. Maybe it is. Maybe we'll find out that math is racist here, or the results of math in relation to democracy is racist. But yes, if you guys don't know about Midnight's Edge or Midnight's Edge After Dark, among other things, they do documentaries and commentary on pop culture, on the Hollywood system, on productions, on now a lot of stuff with DEI being infused in things, as many of you are already familiar with if you've watched my stuff for any period of time. Also, on Tuesdays, usually, and sometimes on the Random Morning Show, I might pop in to be a nerd about laser discs and DivX and dual layering in DVDs. You know, I hadn't talked about or thought about my previous video store experiences until this past, whatever it was, Tuesday or Monday or whatever it was. It's amazing sometimes how stuff that I haven't thought about in years can make me sound like I know what I'm talking about. And I appreciate the opportunity to do so, thanks to Midnight's Edge and Midnight's Edge After Dark. Angelverse, good evening to you. And Frosted Glass, good evening. Assassin of the Gray, good evening. And I hope I didn't miss anybody. But either way, that's enough of that. Enough of the intro. Let's get into the meat of the matter. Tonight's bingo card is bingo card B. B as in, I forgot to post the poll on Twitter earlier today, and so posted on Discord instead. So only those of you that have Discord access got to participate in the poll. Did you like that, those of you that voted? Do you think I should just keep the poll to Discord now, or should I keep posting it on Twitter? Let me know what you think in the comments or the chat or on Discord later on. But all that being said, let's get into it. This one covers 12 minutes. I'll start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed. It's quiet at the beginning. I took out the intro music.
Computer simulations are everywhere.
We live in the Matrix. You guys hear that okay? Let me know real quick in the chat. Let's see. I hear it, says Advocatus Diabli. Sounds good, says Mike R. Keeverdam says, and our first shift. Okay. Hearing it fine, says Derek LaRue. Audio, video, good. All right. So, simulations are everywhere.
If you navigated here today or you looked at a weather report, then use simulations.
I suppose this is true. Sorry, I have to get my bingo card ready. I have to get it all queued up here. There we go. Okay, remember bingo card B. All right, May 2024. All right, so relatively recently, but before the grand tectonic shift in our presidential campaign. All right.
A simulation can game through thousands or even millions of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
What if computer simulations could help us out of one of the most pressing problems of our time?
Okay. I am flashing back to a couple of things. I did a TEDx. In the first round of my channel's existence, actually, there was a TEDXcellence I did, a scripted one back in the olden days, where a guy had simulated an economy of jobs and people and all types of things in order to try to prove a point about male dominance in getting jobs and things. I actually am very proud of that one because that guy gives a story at the beginning of his presentation that absolutely dunks on his entire theory, but that's a whole other show. So when you talk about simulations to solve problems, I'm already a little wary. But okay, what's one of the most pressing problems of our day? I already know from the title, but still.
A rickety democracy.
Why is it rickety? All right, here's the onus. Here's the burden you bear, Mr. Presenter. You have to prove to me that our democracy is already rickety to begin with. You have to prove or at least explain the problem before you introduce the solution.
Here in the United States or around the world?
Or around the world? Okay. I mean, there are probably rickety democracies elsewhere, but okay.
I'm here to argue today that simulations can help us preserve democracy in a time of crisis, in a time of rapid change, both technological and demographic, and indeed climate change, and tension, again, in the US and around the world.
Well, you see, my first exposure to simulation solving problems when I was growing up was War Games and Whopper and Joshua, and it really didn't instill in me a whole lot of trust in simulations to solve complex problems. But I'm here to learn.
I'm a computational neuroscientist.
A computational neuroscientist. Sorry for all the commentary, but first off, that's what I do. Secondly, I have to pause for YouTube. And thirdly, this reminds me of something. I have heard people quote themselves as being neuroscientists in a way like that means something. I've seen several individuals over the course of my channel's time who say that they're neuroscientists, and I would be surprised if that really actually indicates someone is a medical professional or something. It sounds very fancy, but it seems to be a very loose term.
And I'm used to handling complex data. My students and I study the brain, a highly complex object. We take data and we make it simpler in order to understand it. We also build models to help understand how a brain might react.
Okay, when you say you're a neuroscientist, so are you like a neurologist? Are you an MD? I don't know.
And this kind of understanding, I argue, is useful in understanding democracy itself.
Okay.
Imagine neurons, which I do.
Imagine neurons. Okay. Balls of light.
Fair bit. When neurons fire together in synchrony and they fire impulses together.
You mean synchronicity? In synchrony? Isn't synchrony a bank? Anyway.
Neurons fire together in synchrony and they fire impulses together. That can lead to a seizure.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just visualizing this because I'm trying to take on whatever his explanation is bit by bit. All right.
Now imagine people doing something together. Yeah. When people start believing something in unison or acting in unison, that can lead to political collapse, it can lead to unrest, and it can even lead to insurrection.
January 6th. Oh, for crying out loud. You know what else? And I actually alluded to this earlier in the show. How about being told over and over and over and over again that our democracy is dying, and if we vote for the wrong person, democracy will die? I believe it was some great scholar long ago who said something to the effect of, if you tell a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. But okay. And by the way, how many January 6th events have we had since January 6th? Oh, yeah. None.
Computation and mathematical analysis can help explain strange phenomena like this.
Strange phenomena like this? Well, how about phenomenon like the riots of 2020 and 2021? Oh, or the riots previous. I mean, heck, Ferguson, Baltimore, and so on. You want to touch on those, or is this going to be a one-sided mathematical equation?
Which are unfamiliar to most of us in our lifetimes. Mm-hmm. They can not only help explain, but they can also help prevent such events from happening, and maybe even help make repairs to democracy.
Okay, tell me how math is going to prevent the next January 6th.
And finally, and this is important, avoid accidentally causing a problem or making things worse.
How do you avoid an accident? Math never causes accidents? Or people that work with math never cause accidents? I don't know if you've ever heard of Apollo 1.
I would argue to you that democracy ought to have several fundamental functions. It should be representative of all of us.
It's not. It's represent. I mean, a straight democracy is representative of the majority. That's it. There's always going to be a loser. Someone is not going to get their way. And besides which, we live in a constitutional republic, not a straight democracy. So how is math going to fix democracy?
It should be responsive to us. If we change our minds, we should be able to get rid of the people who we think have not been doing a good job.
We should, yes. And we can, theoretically. So, again, you have to prove to me that something is broken before you offer me a solution. You've got 2 minutes into a 12-minute presentation. Keep going.
And finally, democracy should be deliberative. We should elect people who represent us, who deliberate with one another.
Well, yeah, against representative democracy, yes.
And help solve our problems.
Yes, constitutional republic.
But there's a paradox in our democracy as it stands today.
Okay.
And let me explain to you exactly how that paradox might cause a problem.
I appreciate that. By the way, let's take a moment to go over the bingo card just to remind ourselves what we're listening for, and on the off chance we've already heard something and I just missed it. All right, remember this is bingo card B. B is in bingo. That's easy enough. Marginalize marginalization? No. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No. Contradicts own point or argument? Not yet. Feminism? No. Microaggressions or unconscious bias? Not yet. Privilege? No. Benevolent condescension? I'm willing to give a little bit of leeway because he is attempting to educate, so I won't call it condescension yet when trying to be informative, but we'll see. Weightless example or non sequitur? January 6th certainly is a contender for that one. I'm going to hold that in reserve unless or until a more clear option presents itself. Plays victim? Not yet, if at all. Collectivizes his own demographic? Did he say as a mathematician or neuroscientist? I'm not sure. I think he just said that he was. Economic disparity? No. Deceptive statistics. Now, we have yet to circle this square since its implementation onto the bingo card. Given that we're talking about math, if he does not use statistics, I'll be surprised. The question will be whether or not they are deceptive in some demonstrable way. That's going to be the deciding point. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzzphrase. I haven't heard anything yet, but we'll see. A list. Again, we're talking numbers. We'll see. Mind reading or assumes motives. Perhaps. Patriarchy, not yet. Anecdote that probably never happened. He hasn't really given any yet. Diversity, equity, or inclusion? No. White supremacy? No. Childhood or family anecdote? No, he's just given us professional anecdotes so far. Systemic or institutional? Yes. I mean, in the abstract, democracy is a system, political systems, etc. Circling that one. Because even if he doesn't say it explicitly during the course of the talk, we've already gotten there after a fashion. Leaves out vital context? Well, he's 2 minutes in, and I'm still waiting for him to describe the problem, but I think he's getting to that, so we'll see. Sales pitch for product or service. Is his class a product or... Well, I guess we'll see. And lastly, word salad. Can't say yet. So anyway, on the card so far, for sure, free space and systemic or institutional. Some maybes on others. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, please hold on to them. And at worst, I'll get to them at the end of the presentation.
If you look at recent surveys, many of us are dissatisfied with politics.
You don't have to look at recent surveys to find that dissatisfaction. Politics dissatisfies most people all the time because inevitably someone is winning and someone is losing, and even the people winning probably aren't getting everything that they want. So, yeah.
There are more independents than either Democrats or Republicans. That's
good.
Started 2 decades ago.
Good.
Over the last few years, there are now nearly half of voters in the United States who call themselves independents.
Good. I'd rather have people who are free thinkers than just staunchly one side or the other no matter what. You know, or at least leaning more towards free thinking rather than just going along with the proverbial party line. But okay.
That's more than Democrats and Republicans combined.
Good.
But yet, we're also polarized.
Yes, because even amongst independents, they're probably there because they were dissatisfied or disillusioned with their particular party of choice in the past, but still have those leanings.
Those independents also have highly reliable voting habits, voting with either major political party most of the time.
Yes. Again, both parties have alienated a lot of their members, and yet we only have really 2 options every single cycle. So, of course, most of them are going to vote with one party or the other, probably holding their nose half the time.
So how can that be?
I just explained it.
Let me show you a simple simulation that illustrates how both of those things can be true. Independents who are disaffected and yet partisan polarization.
Because there is a lack of viable options each cycle. Okay? The third-party candidates rarely, if ever, give any press at all, any support financially, etc. They're considered just, by the wayside, by the media and by most people, usually as a consequence of media bias. It is a rare day when a third-party candidate actually gets somewhere high enough on the totem pole that they can compete. I think the last meaningful one was Ross Perot back in the 90s, and you might be able to say Bernie Sanders to a certain extent a few years ago, but, eventually they all go by the wayside. But ultimately, there are 2 parties that have the most power, the most influence, the most money, have the best marketing for themselves, and then you have everybody dissatisfied in the middle that ultimately you've got 1 of 2 choices, right or left, or just sit it out. Or, in all reasonable sense, throw away your vote in writing in Mickey Mouse or Bernie Sanders or, the Green Party or whoever's running, Ralph Nader, and so on. That's why. Unless you've got a different theory. I mean, I'm open to it, but that's essentially my understanding of just reality.
And this helps to illustrate how there could be a danger to our system under current conditions.
Okay.
In the simulation, look at this axis from left to right.
Look at this axis from left to right. Okay. Looks like a Bra-Madonna war in the 80s.
This is an axis that's meant to represent liberals and conservatives from left to right. And you can see here voters, or if you can imagine, politicians, piled up in 2 great mountains.
Sure. Okay. What do those numbers mean? So this represents people?
And these 2 great mountains are separated from each other.
Yeah, because they're 2 political parties that probably have some overlap in belief systems to a point. But what is this measuring?
Very little overlap in issues or in cultural stances. There's something different about these 2 mountains.
What does this chart represent?
But now take a closer look.
At what?
This is one dimension that I've shown you, a single dimension from left to right.
What?
But look, here's a 3rd mountain hidden, and that's because there's more dimensionality to voters than just the single axis that we've gotten used to in the last few years.
Okay. This is why I was afraid to do something like this. I'm sure there are people in the chat that know this stuff much more than I do, or familiar with this kind of thing far more than I am, who can look at this and know exactly what he's talking about. I'm looking at this and going, what are we measuring? I need to know the metrics of this. how are you aggregating these results? What do the numbers mean? Do you mean to tell me that there is a sentiment in this country that oftentimes goes on Democrat or Republican side, but there's also kind of a uncertain middle? I'm losing it already.
This third mountain of voters, in fact, has different stances, but yet they're forced to choose. They have
yes, I just said that.
To pick whichever major mountain is next to them, and whichever mountain is closer, they pick. And that's why we're loyal.
Okay. And anybody who can put their hand on the back of their neck and feel warmth can understand that in this country. But is this true for, you talked globally earlier, is this true for all political systems or a parliamentary system? Okay.
And when we're forced to choose between these two major mountains, we're all forced to act as if we're on that single dimension.
Yeah, your single vote is relatively ambiguous to your intentions, your values, and so on. It's all whittled down to just a party vote. It doesn't have any nuance. You have one vote. You put your backing onto a candidate, or effectively, if you don't really care about the candidate but just want the party to win as a whole, the party.
Mathematical analysis has shown that one-dimensional dynamics as you go along a single dimension can lead to instability.
How? What? Oh. Okay. As I said, I'm risking embarrassing myself to anybody out there who is far more wise about mathematics than I am, because I'm listening to him as a layman. I'm trying to understand where he's going with this, and I have absolutely no idea what he's talking about. One-dimensional leads to instability. Okay, how are you going to introduce three-dimensional voting?
And that's important. To get into math a little bit, imagine animals.
To get into math a little bit, imagine animals. I might as well imagine dragons.
If animals all start moving in one direction.
Oh, is this like a lemmings thing?
Then that puts them at risk of getting into a stampede.
Or a orderly march that masks their numbers like the Tusken Raiders on Tatooine. What?
Now imagine people. If we all start doing the same thing, if we all start behaving in unison, if enough of us do that, that can cause a political stampede.
Well, yes, and that could be a landslide of voter sentiment towards one direction or another, which could be seen as a good thing, you know, especially for the winning side. Is that an inherent bad?
And a political stampede can lead to the election of extreme leaders, and it can lead to a collapse of democracy and maybe the loss of democracy in future elections.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?
Right?
So the relative landslide of Obama's election back in 2008 was actually harmful to our democracy. The demonstrable landslide for Reagan back in 1980 or whatever was harmful to our democracy. If a majority of the population is on the same page with one another as far as their selection, that's a bad thing. So what? So a fractured result is a better result. I'm confused. Okay. So when Hillary Clinton got the majority of the popular vote in 2016, that was actually a bad thing. You know, but because of the Electoral College, Trump won. And so that's a good. All right, I'm trying. I'm really trying. I knew I was going to get myself in trouble by doing a math presentation. Of course, not a lot of math has come into this. And so far, you know what? I'm circling it. Deceptive statistics. That chart didn't explain diddly. And no, I'm not talking about Sean Combs. Nobody can explain that. except maybe a grand jury. So I'm circling deceptive statistics on the board. For the first time, an absolutely ambiguous 3D model axis graph that said nothing, had no metrics. Yeah. Okay, I'm backing up a little bit just to make sure I didn't lose my place on this deal. Let's try that again.
We all start behaving in unison. If enough of us do that, that can cause a political stampede. And a political stampede can lead to the election of extreme leaders, and it can lead to a collapse of democracy and maybe the loss of democracy in future elections.
It could. Maybe. If you just ignore every other check and balance in our governmental system, if you just ignore the bifurcation of power in our governmental system, but okay, yeah, it could. You know, what if Dr. Doom became the Sorcerer Supreme? I mean, it could happen.
Can we prevent this?
You have not even constructed a reasonable or rational scenario where it would happen. You have to show the risk before you provide a solution. You haven't done that. You're 5 minutes into this thing.
Well, I should say that reformers have come up with lots of ideas, and if you've been paying attention to this space, you've heard about some of these ideas.
Okay. I mean, I've been reading political news off and on, 6 years, 7 years now. Okay. And I've done 4 or 5 TEDx's on political systems and theories and trying to use AI for this, that, and the other. Okay.
But the problem is that we do not have the luxury of time.
We don't? There's a ticking clock?
It's an unstable time, and I would say that it would be a good idea for us to make some of these repairs in the next few years.
Okay, well, there's an old phrase, speed kills. And part of the genius, I suppose you might say, about our process, especially when changing things, is that it has to be very deliberative. Few things in our system, save for perhaps executive orders, are knee-jerk reaction type actions. Right? That's why we have a Congress. That's why we have debate. That's why we have committees. It's everything to slow things down and put everything through a deliberative process. It is frustrating. It usually doesn't result in people getting what they want, but it is slow and it is methodical and it demands patience. But you want to change everything up in a couple of years. Well, all I got to say to that is good luck.
And we have to get it right, maybe the first time.
I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people get anything right the first time. Because how do you get to the Boston Philharmonic? Practice.
Simulation can help. Like navigation on a smartphone, computation can help us identify paths that can move us forward reliably and without making too many missteps.
But we have to get it right the first time. And as we know, GPS navigation on a phone is always perfect.
Now, I've told you about independence.
Oh, you mean independence ends in TS? Okay, yes, you've told us about independence. You've mentioned them as a concept, but that's about it.
I've told you about independence. Now I want to tell you about some of the solutions. Now, you might imagine that a good idea in such polarized circumstances.
Whoa. Wait. I've told you about independence, as in independent voters. Now I want to tell you about the solutions. So independent voters are the problem? What?
I've told you about independence. Now I want to tell you about some of the solutions. Now, you might imagine that a good idea in such polarized circumstances is to form a third party. Sounds good, right?
Yeah, and if I was a complete know-nothing, I'd say, well, guys, maybe we should form a third party. Not like there aren't thirds and fourths and fifths parties out there.
But in fact, if we do that before attempting other reforms, that can backfire.
There are other parties out there. They're just not as prominent or well-funded or as popular. And if you want to think about it in the abstract, you could say that independents as a voting bloc are a third party, sort of. But anyway, okay, I didn't even think that was a solution. Where do we get to the part where math repairs democracy?
And I'd like to show you a simulation that proves the point.
Oh, please don't make it another graph that tells us nothing.
Here's a simulation based on analysis that my collaborators and I have undertaken. This is now based on results from analyzing hundreds of elections. And we found that voters indeed do act as if they're piled up into two great mountains.
You don't say. Wow. I appreciate someone proving the point through study and surveys and analysis, but I think most people already understood that.
In this case, I've shown the blues on the left and the reds on the right.
And I can't imagine who represents what.
And in this simulation, they vote under the normal rule that we've come to, that we've become used to, which is called first past the post.
Oh, are you going to be suggesting ranked voting or something?
And in this simulation, I've set up conditions so that out of 10,000 simulations, the blues win half the time, 5,000 times.
Oh, you rigged the election for the blues to win? That's a simulation, all right.
And the reds win half the time, 5,000 times.
Okay.
And in the simulation, the fraction of the vote that they need in order to win is about 50%.
You're correct. You are correct. Yeah, that's about 50%. I think it usually, in straight democracies, it's like 51%.
These are the conditions that we're used to in a two-party system. Imagine if we suddenly run a third-party candidate.
A third-party candidate who caters to which values more so than the other in the two-party system established. They'll just split the vote.
And we put that third-party candidate in the middle. The third-party candidate is here in the middle. And I've set up the simulation to be a little bit closer to one of those peaks than the other, because that third party is more sympathetic to those views.
Right.
However, there's something a little bit funny here, which is that now that blue party still needs 50% of the vote to win. But now, because the third party has divided the vote, now the reds only need 46% of the vote to win.
What kind of elections are you talking about? Are you talking about like state elections? Are you talking about national elections? And by the way, I might be incorrect. I probably am. I'm not a world historian or a political scientist. But I would think that by this point, nearly every imaginable semi-functional system of government or system of elections has been attempted either in America or any of the other 100 countries or whatever else there are on the planet or have been over the course of history. So what do, and I'm asking this, sincerely, because I want to find out, hopefully in the next 7 minutes or less that he's got on this thing, what is it he's suggesting that has never been tried before that is a panacea as opposed to the democracy, imperfect as it is, that we are employing right now?
And now we have a situation in which out of 10,000 simulations, the blues win now only 2,000 times, the reds win 8,000 times, and this third party doesn't win at all.
Yes, because you're splitting the difference of people's focus and values. And yeah, okay. You could create a viable third party. You could, but it would take a long time. People are entrenched and enmeshed in this two-party system, right? There's only one good set of views and one bad set of views. And ultimately, your vote only goes towards one candidate or the other on any particular situation. It would take time to build up a third path of either values and beliefs that were predominant enough and easy enough for people to understand and glom onto in this country before it could become an actual competitor. So you couldn't do this in just a couple of years. You couldn't just force majeure this into existence in a couple of years. This would be a societal shift that would need to take place over time. And maybe it is. Maybe it's doing so of its own volition. It's just going to take a while. Because the polarization we're in now, I'll admit, just for my own sanity, isn't very sustainable. So over time, a third way may become viable. But okay, anyway.
And so this is counterproductive, right? This is what we call a spoiler effect, where paradoxically, the third party has spoiled the chances of the party that is closer to them, which is presumably the opposite of what they were trying to accomplish.
Unless they were trying to say, well, I'm going to play the long game and vote my conscience somewhere down the middle in the hopes that others will join me, and over time, it will create a change in the system. You could look at it like that. It's not necessarily an instantaneous gratification kind of thing. It could be just a change of thought. But it doesn't happen overnight. Now,
there are other solutions that, it turns out, are more likely to work.
What is the problem? You need to articulate the problem. You don't like the two-party system. Fine, okay. But why is that inherently wrong? You say that too many people voting too many in the same way at the same time will lead to extremism or will lead to a broken democracy. You haven't proven that yet. You just said that it would. This is already a bad presentation because he's over halfway through this thing and he has not clearly identified a problem or shown evidence that there is an inherent failure state coming. He just thinks that there is, and his only example is January 6th, which is, in the grand scheme of things, an anomaly.
And one of them is redistricting. In the United States, we're mostly represented in single-member districts, and so we have a particular legislator who represents us.
So, what, doing away with gerrymandering? And it is pronounced gerrymandering. The guy's name was Gary, not Jerry. Just for those of you that are history snobs.
In recent years, there's been a move to stem this. You may have heard the word gerrymandering.
I have heard the word gerrymandering. It's gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering is the artful drawing of lines.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to take a bow on that one since I said it right before he.
To disadvantage one candidate or a group, could be a racial group or a whole political party.
Demographic, not group, demographic. You're a mathematician. There's a difference, an important difference.
And to eliminate competition.
Uh-huh.
Computation can help identify such a plan.
Or just looking at the districting maps and seeing how goofy they look can also identify such a plan.
By doing statistical analysis of the universe of possible plans, it's possible to show that a particular plan is an outlier.
Uh-huh. And then if the state government or people in charge of such decide to go with it anyway, what are you going to do?
And when there's an outlier, then a court can intervene.
Conceivably, yes. If you prove that there's something inherently wrong about it.
When the court intervenes, it can dictate the drawing of a new plan.
It can. It is hesitant to do so most times because state sovereignty over how they run their elections is pretty important, but it can.
Computation can also help voters.
No, stop. Okay. Active example. We are going all over the place. This guy has got a shotgun strategy for trying to get everything out all at once. You need focus. You need to explain the problem, and specifically, you were on parties, now you're on redistricting. I knew this was a mistake.
Voters who vote to change the system, to change the rules, to establish an independent commission, can also take the power away from legislators, and they again will need computation.
But they don't take the power away from legislators because then they become the legislators. What do you good gravy, man. What? All right. And again, I mean this sincerely. I am reacting off the cuff to this because what he is saying sounds like utter disconnected nonsense to me. But if there is a political scientist or someone in the audience who knows this stuff better than I do, and he's talking complete sense, and I am just a Dummkopf, by all means, let me know in the comments or the chat. This is just me. I am just the average viewer of this, and I'm taking this in bit by bit, trying to understand. And he is either oversimplifying things or leaving out so much that I just couldn't possibly follow. Anyway, hit the button.
However, this solution, as attractive as it is not enough.
What solution to what?
And that's because those two mountains which I showed you are...
No. Two mountains you showed me. That represented what? Just the voting habits of people? What about the third mountain?
Everywhere. And no matter how much we redraw the lines, there's polarization across the nation.
Yes. So are you attempting to solve for polarization? Is that what this is?
And so the question is, okay, what else do we need to do?
To do about what?
There's something else that's necessary.
What?
The next step is to change the game rules of the game itself.
Change the... Okay. What do you propose?
Alaska voters in the last few years have done exactly that. They voted to do away with partisan primaries. What they've done is remove the primaries, replace them with an all-party primary. Everybody runs in one single primary.
Okay.
The top 4 advance to the general election. Because there are 4 candidates, they then have to be elected under a ranked choice rule.
Oh, ranked choice. Hey, I said that earlier. So you want to do ranked choice voting on a national level, on a federal level. Okay. Now, again, not a political scientist here, but maybe he'll actually, I'll let him explain. If he doesn't explain it, I'll do my best to explain, because I at least have some understanding of ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice is one where you list your first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice.
Yep.
If your first choice doesn't cut the mustard, then they drop out and your vote is reassigned. The consequence of this is that Democrats and Republicans still have a chance to advance, and they do, to the general election, but it changes the incentives.
Okay, before I get into my reflex concerns about such a thing. Frosted Glass, thank you so much. Step 1, graph. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, democracy. Exactly. I don't understand. He's not clarifying anything here. Okay, here's the problem I have, again, reflexively, with ranked choice voting on a national scale. You're entrusting too many moving parts to a system you already say people have lost faith in. All right? My vote is reassigned? By who and how? And doesn't that just introduce more opportunities for mistakes or errors or manipulation? That'd be my first reaction to that. If somebody said, well, now we're going to do ranked choice voting in our national elections. That's where I'd be a little bit, But let's see if he actually addresses such a concern.
They have to play not to their party faithful, but instead they play to all voters. It changes tactics. They try to win over each other's supporters. And it changes attitudes. And just to give you an example, here's a selfie that's taken by 3 congressional candidates.
Oh, there's Sarah Palin. God, I haven't thought about her in years.
1 Democrat and 2 Republicans. And here they are chumming it up, taking a selfie together. And I can tell you that at least one of these candidates is not in the habit of chumming around with a member of the other party. So you think that, and I don't know. So you think, I'm going to assume it's Sarah Palin. You think that Sarah Palin is only there and being cordial to her competition because of ranked choice voting. She just couldn't possibly be, in her normal days, a relatively decent and civil person. She's only there because of ranked choice voting. I mean, I guess she could be that cynical. I guess it's possible. I don't know. So this is one way that, in fact, a new change of rules can help.
And you want to do this in the next couple of years because we're out of time to save democracy already?
And in fact, we've done simulations that show that this rule, which is called top 4 primary, works with redistricting reform. The other one I showed you. Put together, they can in fact double the number of competitive districts. So there's even a case in which there's synergy that's possible.
How does this cure polarization? How does this cure people operating on ideological lines, or more importantly, the parties pushing those ideological lines and pushing those divisions in order to get an advantage in the next election cycle.
Now, I've given you a few ideas, but there are actually many ideas for reform. And you
haven't even told us that you don't like the two-party system. Okay, there are problems with the two-party system. I'll agree. You want to solve for the two-party system by effectively eliminating parties? I don't understand what you're trying to do here.
You may know them. Eliminating the Electoral College.
Yeah, which would be stupid.
Approval voting. Campaign finance reform.
Yeah, that last one is ambiguous enough that I could be for it, depending on what you're talking about. I would love to get the money out of politics, much more than it already has been. I would love to not have millions upon millions of dollars in dark money that can't be traced, can't be sourced. You don't know where it's coming from necessarily. You don't know whose agenda is funding what. I would love for that to go away. I'd love for there to be a relatively even playing field on who gets airtime, advertising, and so on in this country, rather than it just being effectively functional kings of our democracy by bank account or backers who have the opportunity to get to office in this country. It'd be nice.
The question is how to choose and how to figure out which ones to do first and with the most urgency.
Well, good luck getting our politicians to campaign finance reform themselves into a disadvantage. I guess that is what. Could you address that problem with math?
And simulations can again help. Simulations can game out outcomes.
You haven't even shown us how simulations have helped anything yet. You've gamed out possibilities and contingencies for situations that'll probably never occur. You haven't actually told us how would you implement any of this in the functional world.
Representation, responsiveness, deliberation. And simulations can do something that enacting a reform cannot do easily, which is game out long-term outcomes.
Nobody cares about your guesses. How are you going to implement this? What would you do in the real world to make change? You can run all the simulations you want forever in a computer. It's not going to convince anybody to do anything unless you can show how it could be done and also demonstrate a problem that it will solve.
What's going to happen 10 years from now?
No, you don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now. Who could have predicted Donald Trump? Let me ask you that. I wonder if our speaker had run 20,000 simulations on political candidates in 2015, if any of them, to any great proportion, would have thought that Donald Trump would become president. I'd be amazed if that were the case. You have no idea what's going to happen in 10 years. You don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes.
And that's important. Furthermore, every state is different. Cities are different. The same solution is not going to work in every place.
Yes, because states in particular have a certain level of sovereignty and difference in culture and custom that you're not going to eliminate with math.
And so it's important to be flexible and to look for the solution that works best. Somewhat shockingly, some states have even outlawed ranked choice voting.
Shockingly, why? Maybe they don't trust it, and that is their prerogative. Shockingly, they made a decision that you don't agree with in a majority vote. Oh my God!
And so one would have to come up with another solution for those places.
Like what? What solution does math offer if not ranked choice voting for those states? I mean, it would take you all of 10 seconds to list off a couple.
Now, let me be realistic. Math is not enough.
But the whole title of the thing is, can math repair democracy?
But math can be assistive and it can help speed the process for people who want to change the system. No. You've spent this entire presentation saying how simulations and math offer solutions, but now it's not enough. Well, I already knew it wasn't enough. Okay. Contradicts own point or argument. Good gravy. Circling that one. Leaves out vital context. Circling that one. Sales pitch for product or service. His process of simulations and or ranked choice voting.
I'm more than happy to circle for. What else? I don't know. I'll hold off. I don't want to. Let's not make too many decisions in frustration. I'll take my own advice here. No knee-jerk reactions.
In other words, math and computation can act as a GPS to rescue our lost democracy.
And as we know, GPS is never wrong.
Now, the way you can help.
No, you haven't even said how you can help.
Is by advocating for reforms through voter initiatives in states that have that.
Like what? Like ranked choice voting? Is that our only option?
You can advocate for local reform in your city or
like what?
Town.
Like what?
And if you're a scientist, I really want your help.
Okay, I'm a scientist. I'm a Punisher scientist.
If you're a scientist, I want you to come and get to work understanding these things in your city, in your town, in your state, and in your nation.
What if I'm a food scientist?
As it turns out, some of these reforms, such as ranked choice voting,
the only reform you've mentioned is ranked choice voting. Do you have another option?
Have been run in hundreds of elections across America.
Great. And
that means that there are experiments being done right now in real time.
And the results of those have been?
I want to end with a quote from a former president, Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay, this is effectively filler.
Who is not a scientist.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, sure.
But in fact was very interested in this. And he called democracy an experiment.
Of course, every system undertaken by society is an experiment because it is ongoing and is tested, especially under rule of law. He called it an experiment. Oh my God. He did?
He said democracy is this national experiment in which it's essential for the rules to end up representing all of us.
Except they don't represent all of us. The rules don't represent serial killers.
It's my hope that math can help get us there and build a better future for all of us.
Were you still quoting Roosevelt at that point?
Thank you.
Okay. Utter, absolute gobbledygook nonsense, at least for me, the mathematics layman and political scientist, which I'm not. Good gravy, that was frustrating. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that being the presentation, let's move on to the bingo card. This is how I have it right now. I'm going to go over it one more time by myself. If you guys have any arguments for squares to be circled, please hold on to them. I'll get to you momentarily. Marginalization. Yes, when he was talking about gerrymandering and redistricting and people left out, racial groups, he said, and so on. So circle in that one. Self-vilification or wretchedness. I don't think he ever used himself as some like element of I'm a problem or I've contributed to this in some way. I don't think so. So I'll move past that one. Feminism, no. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. Unconscious bias. That might be a bit of a stretch. Privilege. Maybe, well, I mean, there's an implied privilege between the two major parties versus a third party just in outcomes. I guess, or is that too much of a stretch? I'm reaching here because he was very blinders on this thing. Benevolent condescension, boy howdy did I feel condescended to at certain points. It's like, gosh, did you know that there's three parties and that people like this and people don't like that and then independence and that, yeah. Weightless example, non sequitur, January 6th. He brought it up. He never explained how math explained it or could have solved it, or he didn't even, and plus the fact he didn't bring up any other political action of a violent nature from the quote unquote other side of the aisle. Yeah, he plays victim. Not directly, but he was sort of a doomsayer. I don't know if that counts as plays victim. You'll have to let me know. Collectivize his own demographic as a scientist, if you're a scientist. You know, as a neuroscientist and this, that, and the other. So that might be a little bit of a personal prerogative, and I'm circling that one. Economic disparity. Did he talk about economic disparity? I mean, maybe that was seated within his redistricting complaint, but I can't say for sure. You'll have to let me know. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. Well, ranked choice voting is not a new buzzword or buzz phrase. Simulations are not a new buzzword or buzz phrase, but those are the two things that he kept saying over and over again. So, a list. I wish he'd given us a list of options. He didn't. So, I don't know. Mind reading or assumes motives. Yeah, that someone's vote is wasted, or like I said, maybe there's a collective of people out there playing the long game by voting third party over time to try to change people's minds and try to increase the possibility of there being a third party that's viable in the process. No, it just never works. Like, okay, so couldn't be. Patriarchy. No, I never talked about gender politics. Anecdote that probably never happened. Did he give us any anecdotes? He showed us a picture of Sarah Palin doing a selfie and January 6th. And I think that's... Oh, yeah, and his students and him talk about neurons all the time, or modeling the brain. But I don't think that none of them sounded like they were false. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, not in the classical sense of DEI, but I mean, he tried to talk about more representation. I don't know if that quite counts, though. White supremacy. No, he didn't bring up race so much. I mean, he said racial groups at one point, but he didn't get too specific. Childhood or family anecdote. He never talked about himself and his childhood or his family. And lastly, word salad. Boy, howdy. Word salad. All right, so that's the card as I have it. No bingos yet, but the possibility exists. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, put them in the comments now. I'll scroll up a little bit. And it does help if you tag me in your comment, but I will look. Anyway, Mr. E, that was a bloviating way of saying we need to cheat in very specific ways to make it look believable using math. F this guy. Well, I don't know what he was trying to do, because he was so vague. He was so just unclear about what it was that he was trying to get across and everything. And again, he never clearly identified a problem that his proposed solution was going to fix. Just ranked choice voting. I like ranked choice voting. Well, great. Several states, as you said, have effectively outlawed ranked choice voting. So now what are you going to do? I don't know. Let's see. Hey, R.D. Bayar, my love is like a swift, a pop song tactic grift. I still love DNC, but as much as you see. Or maybe, but not as much as you see. I don't know. Hey, R.D. Bayar. Were you always a sloth? I don't know. The whole thing was a non sequitur. Yeah. It was just all over the place and just, yeah. Abacus Diabli, Scarlett, there is zero actual evidence that ranked choice voting lessens partisanship. It is purely a theory at this time, left out context. That is true. Already circled, leaves out vital context, elsewise for everything else. But yeah, if that's his only solution. This reminds me a lot of a TEDx I did, again, several years ago now, where a guy proposed using AI agents to do your voting for you. I remember that either the title or the thumbnail was "Release the Politibots," but I think it was something to do with, can we, automate democracy or something like that. And he was just laser focused on trying to introduce this one solution to all democratic problems. And I'm like, I don't believe you. Plus the fact that he had a vested interest in such a system because he owned a business that was pushing a product to set up such a system, but that he didn't mention too much. Advocate is again, Scribe like, can we just call this entire presentation an anecdote that never happened? For fun, I just might. I'll hold that aside for a second. There might be a better argument, but that's not too bad. Frosted Glass, unconscious bias for the two major parties oppressing independence. Well, he seemed to lament the fact that the two-party system was there. I didn't get the sense that he was a fan of the two-party system. It seemed like, or at least this is the sense I got, he was wanting to do away with the polarization simply on the basis of party affiliation. So I don't know about, and if that's the case, that wasn't very unconscious. That was very blatant. So, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. You'll have to, if I'm misunderstanding, just let me know. And also a respectful bowing Dogcat Fox from Derek LaRue. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
Oh, there's a Roan Harushan Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Derek. Again, appreciate it. Let's see. Frosted Glass plays victim. If he considers himself an independent, he kept talking about how independents are suppressed. Does he consider himself an independent because he talked about independence as needing a solution? I might need. I know I'm being picky here, but I want to make sure I got it right. You gotta let me know. Let's see. A mystery. Frosted Glass has a point with the plays victim. Did he say he considers himself an independent? Did I miss that part? Or was that clarified somewhere? Frosted Glass again, unconscious bias. No, I mean he's saying other people have bias for the two major parties. Yeah, but that's not an unconscious bias. That's a demonstrably conscious bias. People are voting that way. Whether they want to vote for one party or the other, or they're an independent, kind of like, holding their nose, that's not unconscious. That's a deliberative, conscious decision. So I can't say the unconscious bias. Let's see. Advocatus. Inclusion is implied with him saying represents us all a dozen times. See, I'm always kind of wary of, DEI as a concept in its totality rather than splitting up the words individually. I'm always a little wary of that, but well, he did push for ranked choice voting, which has more options, technically. All right. I'll accept it. I'll allow it, as the judges would say. I'll allow it. And so, with that, if you can believe it.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
Our first bingo down the diagonal. All right. And there's still an open question about plays victim. I know it's not a bingo square, but I just want to make sure that I've got a solid argument there. PRDBR, too bad we don't have a Sum Ting Wong square. Oh, no. That's not nice. Let's see. Let's see. Datura Jones, creativity implies imagination, and I assume that's what it thinks chaos is. It? Like Pennywise? Or is this a comment associated with something previous? Let me know. All right. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? Yeah, the entire presentation being an anecdote that probably never happened. like some sort of fever dream, like some sort of walk of shame sort of thing. Advocatus, unconscious bias could be the graph with issues that matter to the parties and how it works against its goal. I mean, but the graph was just, it meant nothing. I've already used the graph for leaves out vital context and everything. It just, the graph is just, or his against his goal. See, this is the thing. I was so confused as to what he was trying to get at. It's like, so you don't like the two-party system. You don't like the polarization. This is the problem when somebody does not effectively articulate what problem it is they're trying to address. Oh, there are two parties, and everybody ends up voting for one of the two parties, and that's bad. Why? Oh, if everybody voted at the same time for the same thing, that would cause extremism. Why? I mean, over and over again, this guy. So it makes it very difficult to say that he meant this or this led to that because he didn't give any specifics, no examples. I know. I'm such a nitpicker. But then he didn't give us a whole lot to work with this time around, did he? We're reaching. Scribelite, was this really an actual name brand TED Talk? This poor of one made it? Yeah, no, this is a TED Talk. This is not a TEDx. This is why I was nervous for other reasons at the beginning because I thought this is going to be some really long-form mathematical stuff that makes sense to someone who knows, but not me, because this is a TED Talk. You have an actual professional on the stage, an expert on something. And I was like, uh-oh, introducing mathematics, but it might as well have been a TEDx talk, right? Because there's nothing there. Status of the Gray. All I know is this. This is it? The sum total is in this statement? Oh my God. Okay. All I know is this 10-pound brain... Oh, I see. 10-pound brain guy thinks I am too stupid to vote the way he wants, so he wants to take away my right to representation with saying the Electoral College must go. I don't think he said the Electoral College must go. I think he said that the Electoral College is often cited as a problem. I mean, I'll at least extend the benefit of the doubt there that he was just listing things that people usually bring up when they want to change the system. It could be the case that he doesn't like the Electoral College, but I don't think he said so. But I do agree the whole Electoral College thing is broken. Yeah, if Hillary Clinton had won the election, no one on the left would be complaining about the Electoral College, right? If Donald Trump had won the popular vote, but Hillary Clinton got the electoral vote, nobody would be complaining about it. Derek LaRue, I like the music in the background. I'm glad. Ever since I learned to turn off the echo cancellation thing on this deal, I can play the music in the background and it doesn't seem to make my speaking voice sound like I'm underwater, as far as I know. Well, let's see. And please don't Australian up my America. It isn't perfect, but it is our way. And that was the other thing, too. He brought up at the beginning that simulations could solve problems in voting globally. But he never brought up a single example from any other country that had been trying any of these other options, abstract or specifically ranked choice voting, that he brought up for years previous to see how they've done and how much they're enjoyed by the populace. He's run simulations, but you don't need to run simulations because we have electoral systems across the world that have been running in different ways for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So you run a bunch of simulations on the American system. Great. But I need scientists to change things somehow in the next couple of years because there's a ticking clock, everybody. I'm not going to tell you what the end result of that ticking clock is. Just extremism. Probably Trump, without saying it. But anyway. Just for fun, because this was a TED Talk, and a very disappointing TED Talk, and we went through it, and I kept waiting for something to happen, and something to be said, and something to be done that never was done, and it was very unsatisfying. Just for catharsis, I'm going to circle that anecdote that probably never happened, because it really is this talk. And with that, just for...
Bingo!
What? Bingo! Yeah!
Of course! Of course!
There's our second bingo, and likely our last bingo. Of course, as always, if anybody has an argument for a square to be circled after the fact, I am happy to take your arguments in the comments or on the Discord. And if your argument wins me over and causes a bingo to occur, I will post an updated bingo card onto the Discord server so that everybody can see that you, changed things. You like changing things? I like changing things. Also, how about for a change, I have the Discord link ready before the show's over. Ha-ha! If you'd like to join the Discord, or my channel and my shows and whatever else I do on there, there's a link in the chat right now. You just have to click on that. It's good for one day. And if you click on that, you'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you're not a bot, are a person, and have actually watched the show. And the secret word for today is simulation. Just say, hello, simulation. And in another simulation, apparently, Frosted Glass had another argument that I missed. You missed my last unconscious bias. Okay. Scrolling. Okay. He seems to have an unconscious bias since most changes he wants are Democrat talking points like abolishing the Electoral College. I could agree with that. He only did bring up January 6th. I don't think he said he wanted to abolish the Electoral College. I think he just listed it amongst things that people usually bring up when changing the system. He did, at least by implication, make fun of Sarah Palin. Okay, you know what? You convinced me. You convinced me. I mean, he was definitely skewed left politically throughout the entire thing, even though he was talking about, quote unquote, fixing the system. When he really didn't want to fix the system, he just was leaning more towards things that would have made him happy. Like if they'd been implemented in 2016 or something. So, all right. There you go. I think he did outright say get rid of the Electoral College. Not sure he did say that or just bring it up as one of the usual suspects. But either way, I agree. Square's been circled. So there you go. But with that, everybody, I'm going to start closing it out here. What should I do to remind people of stuff? Oh, yeah. If you like my stuff, and I mean my shows, my stuff is a whole other subject matter, you can leave a like if you haven't already. Please leave a like if you like this kind of thing. Share my shows, my channel out on the social media of your choice. I'm usually on Twitter or X, as you can see there at the bottom of the screen, scribe_light. Follow me on there if you'd like. What else? Oh, YouTube really wants me to set up channel memberships. I've asked this a couple times in the past. Is there anyone... See, here's the problem I always have, and I know I've said this before, and I'm sorry for those of you that have heard it. I'm always hesitant to set up a subscription type thing on my channel because I'm not sure what I can offer that would deserve that kind of consistent support from someone. Because I've got a regular day job. Maybe I can do some like members only streams where we do some really goofy TEDx's or something, or some other subjects or whatever. But I'm always wary of like, well, if I'm going to be, putting up a system where people could effectively recurringly donate money to me, I want to bring some value to that. And I'm not quite sure what that could be. Maybe it's just me having a low opinion of myself in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, YouTube keeps wanting me to set them up. And I am, if nothing else, susceptible to peer pressure. So if you think that's something that you like, if you see other channels doing membership stuff and things that you think might be workable over here, let me know in the Discord, let me know on Twitter or in the comments. I'll take your opinions into consideration. Either way, whether you're for or against the idea. Beyond that, I'll be here Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern for the Sunday stream where I'll talk about some stuff. And boy, has there been a lot of stuff this week between New York and how about political porn stars? You don't know about that one, do you? Oh, man. Sarah... dang it. Sister Scribe. I did it myself. Dang it. Anyway, Sister Scribe sent me a link to something that I'm... Oh, man. You go years and years and years being very good at it, and I trip up once in a while. Anyway, my sister sent me a link to a story that she thought would be interesting for me to have on my show at some point. And anyway, there we go. Also, Miranda Stone is here. You guys know about Miranda Stone, don't you? Queen of the Discords, Sarah... Dang it! Okay, anyway, I think I'm done for the night. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to... See, Sarah Stone is a, I think, now retired porn star. And I think I had that in my mind when I talked... it doesn't matter. Anyway, everybody, hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. Hope you have a good Friday ahead of you. Weekend as well. Everybody who donated, thank you so much for your generosity, whether it's to myself or the fundraisers at the top of the chat box. I'm going to get out of here before I do something else that's just stupid. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, like I hope I do. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.